When I am seeking optimism, there is nobody I would rather turn to than my friend Darin Gantt, Panthers.com. We can ask the old guy all sorts of questions. I appreciate your time, sir. Happy Friday to you. So let me start with this. How does this group not allow the demoralization of that loss in New Orleans to linger?
Well, you know what? I would rather light a candle than curse our collective darkness this week, Adam. So here's what I did. I went and talked to an expert in such matters of historical perspective, one Luke Keuchly. And I asked Luke. Luke was on the other side of a loss that was actually worse. He was part of that 51-13 at San Francisco back in 19. And I said, Luke, what'd you do on the plane ride home from San Francisco? And Luke said, you know what? I sat down in my seat. I'm next to Colin Jones. We talked for a while. Khalil's in front of me. Talked to him for a minute. And then I walked up to the front of the plane and talked to Greg and JJ and the boys for a little bit. Cam was usually asleep. And then I sat down and I ate some ice cream. and I said, Luke, that's probably a pretty good idea. And he said, yeah, you can't forget. And Luke's greater point, and you can check out the entire story on Panthers.com from earlier this week. But Luke's greater point was, if you want to be in this business long term, you've got to approach all these things as long-term propositions, which means have a routine. Know that on Monday you do XYZ. Know that on Tuesday you do XYZ. Know that on Wednesday. And he said, we came in on Monday, we watched the tape, we took what we could from it as teaching points. We rested on Tuesday, we got to work on Wednesday in practice and fixed all that stuff. And you just keep moving on. I mean, the fact that it's, the weekend after Labor Day or whatever, and, you're talking about one game makes it easier to be one game at a time. And I just think they've all kind of adopted that mantra of this was one of 17. Nobody's freaking out about this. And, there was plenty of concern. There's no doubt. I mean, that looked like everything bad we saw last season. But there's so much new here. I mean, 23 players on that roster Sunday weren't here in 2023. The entire coaching staff on the offensive side of the ball wasn't here in 2023. The GM, the head coach, not here in 23. So I just think that, there was so much new and so much different that some degree of, growing pains was probably to be expected. Of course, nobody wanted to see the degree of pain that they saw last week because it was considerable. But, it's still just one.
100% agree. And as I get to this, kind of the follow-up about this.
Right. Yes, but that comes with that. And the yes, but is assuming they fix all this stuff.
Well, yes, assuming that. Well, I'm not even anticipating that they can fix, enough of it to really matter. But that isn't even the point. That team had veterans who had a lot of success. It didn't have Cam, but whether it's Luke or Greg Olsen or Ryan Khalil, the team had also won four. They had won 4 in a row prior to that loss, so at least had some success. This team, I mean, they are searching for all sorts of answers, and now we're coming to the home opener, and I don't get the sense that there's a whole lot of patience with fans. You and I can be patient as all day long. So the home opener against the Chargers. I mean, there seems to be a sense of urgency necessary to at least fix the offense.
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing that, can't look like it looked like last week. I mean, I've told people this week, and one of the benefits of being as old as we are, Adam, somebody here at the office asked me the other day, have you ever seen anything worse than that? I was like, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's only... Even by margin of defeat, that was only the 4th worst in franchise history. I've seen much worse than that. But, yes, I mean, obviously, I think people were just, people are tired of looking at bad offense and not being able to score and not being able to move the ball. And that's why last week's game woke up the echoes. So to speak, of all the bad things that everybody was hoping were in the past with all that new on offense. But, listen, I was of the mind that this was probably, I mean, I hate getting in the prediction game, but just from watching them throughout the spring and training camp and everything else, I thought this looks like a 5, 6, 7 win team to me. Still could be. Obviously, they need to go ahead and get started on that to make everybody a little bit happier. But, it's just a game of expectations. And I think that's what made last week such a struggle is people thought it was going to be so much better. And you got the bad one out of the way early rather than the bad one happening in the middle of the season or something like that. And, because the last 6 years have been what they are, the reaction was fairly predictable, I suppose.
Darin Gantt, Panthers.com, joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. So, run the ball? I mean, I know...
That's what I do. I mean, It's like when times get weird, here's what I do. I buy canned goods and bottled water and toilet paper. I make sure my 401k, my emergency fund is fully stocked, and then I run. And that's what I do in times of trouble. I mean, that's the easiest way. John Fox, the noted offensive innovator that he was the master of clutch and grab and keep it close. I mean, he won 7 games in 2002 with Rodney Peete at quarterback and not a whole lot of skill position talent. So on the other side of Steve Smith. But I don't know. I think that the perfect recipe for them in this game, and really both sides will be using the same platform, is run it 25 or 30 times. Mm-hmm. Clutch, grab, keep it close. If you looked at that Raiders game last week with the Chargers, I mean, the Raiders actually did a decent job of run defense for most of the day. They allowed 25 carries for 69 yards, other than those 2 big J.K. Dobbins runs. And, that made the numbers look egregious. 27 for 176, I think, looks a lot different than 25 for 69. But, it is what it is. I think if I'm the Panthers, you've got to, and that's why that one last week just got away from them. Right. I think the intent was take a shot downfield early, let them build up a little confidence. But I think in ordinary circumstances, Dave Canales, much like Jim Harbaugh, is a guy who wants to run, wants to let that set up play action and build your offense that way from the inside out rather than from the outside in. So, I just think that that's probably what you're going to see from both directions in here on Sunday when it may or may not be a little weathery here in beautiful Charlotte.
Yeah, it's weathery right here in the beautiful capital city of Raleigh, North Carolina. They are...
we really are fortunate, aren't we?
Very.
We get to live in some pretty sublime places.
It's not bad.
It's important to be grateful for what we have, don't you?
We are really trying to silver lining this, aren't we? Darin Gantt, Panthers.com, is joining us here.
I mean, it is what it is. What are you going to do? Freak out, jump off the ledge?
I'm totally with you. Here's the thing, and I understand that we could all argue that the pass should have been completed to start the game. I mean, Deontay Johnson, or I'm not even discounting that Adam Thielen might have also been a possible receiving option on that play. It looked like they were both open, and I think Bryce kind of split the difference, which, of course, was bad. But I wonder if Dave had it to do all over again, if he didn't maybe almost outsmart himself, because leaning on we're going to be a run first team all preseason, and then throw the ball over the middle on play 1 again should have been completed, not intercepted. Yeah. That maybe because I think at that point the entire world sped up beyond where Bryce could handle it on game 1.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, that is a classic example of one that gets away from a team. And I think back to Luke's point, when one gets away from you like that, you kind of look at it as a whole rather than individual parts of it and kind of understand that every now and then that's just going to happen. And we've all seen that game once or twice in the middle of every season. Mm-hmm. It just happened to stack up here where everybody was paying attention in week 1. So that makes it more dramatic. Again, could they have come out a little more conservatively? Sure. I just think that it was a surprise to a lot of people to see that one get away as quickly as it did, because basically you're down 17-0 at the end of the first quarter and that thing's over. Yep. So it got away from them. And that happens. Avalanches, once they start going downhill, very seldom turn around and go back up.
Yeah, so, they don't have brakes.
you just kind of eat that one and move forward. Yeah, maybe have an ice cream, as Luke suggested. But
I have a follow up to that in a minute. I do want to ask you how they replace Darin Gantt. How do they replace Derrick Brown? Because we could talk about the loss. The bigger loss ultimately was losing their best defensive player for the year.
Yeah, no question. Unlike Darin Gantt, Derrick Brown is impossible to replace. You just don't do it. It can't be done. So, you have to just turn it into a collective effort. I mean, let me slip into football cliche mode. Run defense takes all 11 guys. You know, it takes 11 dudes all
right.
being in the right gap at the right time to be able. But I mean, you don't replace, you don't replace Derrick Brown the same way the LA Rams don't replace Aaron Donald when he retires this offseason. You just don't do it. You just got to change the way you do business. Now, that's going to take a lot of guys being in a lot of the right gaps at the right time. That's going to take, creating some new ways. I don't think they're blessed with sufficient pass rush options to make them particularly dangerous in that way. So they've got to be sound everywhere and mix it up a little bit. I think over the course of this season, they like what they've got in Jadeveon Clowney on one side. I think they're going to have to manufacture a little pressure. Otherwise, as this season goes on, I wouldn't be surprised if you see them blitzing more, see them moving people around, see them doing what the Saints did, honestly. Bring more than they can block. I mean, now that puts a burden on the backside, and you can't have coverage busts like Jordan Fuller on the first play or on the big touchdown on the first series against the Saints. And you could tell right off the bat, just from the way Fuller and JC looked at each other and both of their reactions, it's like, that's not where they were supposed to be. Those guys have to be disciplined. And that's what I say. I mean, it's just going to take all 11 of them. They've got some dudes. I mean, Nick Thurman and LeBron Ray played a lot of good snaps for them last year after being signed as, off-the-street guys in the middle of training camp. And, they got Jaden Peavy and, A'Shawn Robinson came in as the counter to Derrick Brown. They wanted somebody 330 pounds on the other side so that you couldn't automatically run the other direction from Derrick. And, now A'Shawn's going to have to step up and play a different role. Mm-hmm. So it's incumbent on all of them. I don't know that it's going to be successful in large scale over the long term because, again, how many teams can lose their best player in week one and function as if nothing ever happened? Right. 2004, when Steve Smith breaks his ankle in the opener after the Super Bowl, Muhsin Muhammad responded by having a freak-out year and got a lot of money as a result. Somebody's going to have to take that opportunity to get themselves paid on this deal.
Can Julius Peppers come back? I know he's in the Hall of Fame, but can Peppers come back? I mean, why not?
I mean, ostensibly, I guess. They're not going to take his head off the wall in Canton or anything, but Pep looks like he could still play. I mean, he's probably up about 305 now, but it's a reasonably tight 305. He's not gotten all sloppy or anything. It's
same with me. No. We're not.
Tight 305.
We're not going there. We're not going there. First of all, speaking of tight 305, do we know what flavor the Luke Keuchly ice cream was?
We don't. We don't. We've got to commit a little more journalism. He couldn't necessarily remember. I did ask.
If you were the ice cream eater, what would the flavor be?
I like a butter pecan. I enjoy the entire catalog. I am blessed.
You're a retired person.
Yeah, I enjoy a good ice cream, and I'm blessed to live near two amazing independent ice cream parlors here in Elizabeth Creamery and two Scoops, each within walking distance of my house, which makes it easier to not be a tight 305.
Excellent. All right, and final thing for Darin Gantt, very quick. I want a prediction. North London Derby at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
The injury report this morning is a good one for the beloved Tottenhams. I think Dominic Solanke is healthy and going to be well. Mickey Van de Ven, healthy. A little bit of question about Basuma. Not sure he's going to be able to go. But I think having Big Dom on the field is good. I'm liking this one, 2-1 Spurs.
2-1 Spurs. That would be great for those of us Liverpool fans who want to create a little separation with Arsenal. Darin Gantt, the best there is. We ask the old guy. I appreciate your time, sir. Enjoy the opener against the West Baltimore Chargers because there is a definite Ravens feel about this Chargers team. Sir, we'll talk to you again soon.
Absolutely. And if we've got nothing else, we've got ice cream.